Thank you very much, Karen Odonkor, Disability Inclusion Advocate, CEO of Special and Brainy NGO, which provides educational support in all forms for students with developmental disabilities in Ghana. Thank you for joining us on Wellbody and welcome. What would you say have been the challenges, that you face taking care of people with autism?
The challenges. The first challenge I would say is the lack of continuity, because when you start doing something at the school or center, usually when the kids go home, the parents don't continue with what you're doing. So when they come back, then you have to, it's either you're struggling to pick up from where you left off, or then you have to start all over again. So for instance, you're teaching a child an independent living skill, perhaps brushing of the teeth. It takes a lot to even get the child to hold the toothbrush, to get used to the toothbrush. You make a little progress, the child accepts the toothbrush, the child starts holding the toothbrush. And, when the child goes home and it's time for brushing of the teeth, perhaps what the parent or guardian would do is just to put the toothpaste on it and then do it for the child. You're trying to let the child do it on their own. So then that's breakage between what happens in the school and what happens at home is a big challenge. It's a big challenge.
And how long can this last?
Come again?
How long can this challenge last? The breakage that you're talking about here.
It can last for as long as it can last. It can last if you speak to the parents and the parents understands where you're coming from, then that's good for you. You know that, okay, the parent is going to try and pick up from where you leave off during the day. But then in the cases where the parents don't understand where you're coming from and, they are not on the same level with you, it's very difficult. And then that means it's going to last for a long time, and it's going to affect the progress of that particular activity you're trying to teach the child.
What are some of the risk factors in autism?
When you say risk factors, what do you mean?
In terms of taking care of these children, are there any risk factors there?
Yes and no. Some institutions provide health insurance for their staff. Some do not provide the health insurance. And, with autism comes tantrums and all that comes with it. So you can go to work one day and then have your child throw a tantrum. And in as much as you're trying to protect yourself and the child from harming him or herself and other people's environment, and you're also trying to protect yourself, things can happen. So there might be a little risk factor there, especially for those who don't have health insurance covering them in those instances. But really, aside that, there's no other risk I can think of.
But what are the best ways to support someone with autism?
The best way, I would say, is something I call the multidisciplinary approach. So you're supporting the child through a holistic approach, from education to health, to the parental support, to the sibling support, the community support, the people around them in the home. You have all those people coming together, having an understanding, and if it's something you're trying to do, they're all doing it from different angles, rather than having the child learn something in school and then something else is happening in the home, and then the doctor is giving something else, the therapist is giving something else. I think when there's no linkage in that whole circle, the progress is not as we would want it to be, even though sometimes there is some level of progress. I just think, from my experience, it's way better when you have everybody on board doing the same thing from different angles. Then okay, so if the doctor says this, then from an educational angle, I'm supposed to be doing this and this and this. And when the child comes home, I'm supposed to be doing this and this. I actually think the multidisciplinary approach is the best way to support a child with autism.
Well, do you think there is much awareness about this condition?
Yes and no. I mean, looking back to 5, 7 years ago,
Mm.
we are not where we used to be as a country. There's been a little improvement, but we are not there yet. There's so much room for improvement. The awareness day in, day out, organizations of persons with disability and autism, organizations are creating awareness, educating people, sensitizing the public, their parents, everybody that matters in the lives of persons with persons with autism. But it's just a human nature. Change is something difficult for people to accept. So it's going to take time, but then eventually I have hope and I know that we will get there, because if we've been able to move from where we were 5, 7 years ago and we are where we are now, there's so much more room for improvement.
Well, just before I let you go, what do you think the society should do in supporting parents with autistic children?
I think they should just understand them, put themselves in their shoes. It's not easy to have a child with autism. It's not easy, but there's always so much happening. So for you, the outsider, the best you can do is to give the parents that space and the room and the respect to, okay, so the child, you're in public and the child is throwing a tantrum. Instead of you shying away, passing all sorts of comments to the extent of insulting the parents, you can just, if you can't do anything, just keep quiet and stand there and keep all your thoughts and your comments to yourself, because at that point, what the parent is going through.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Karen Odonkor, for talking to us. You are a disability inclusion advocate and also CEO of Special and Brainy NGO, which provides educational support in all forms for students with developmental disabilities in Accra, Ghana. Thank you so much for talking to West Africa Democracy Radio.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye.